So people rarely go from A to B. I mean, our life journey does not work like that. And likewise with your creativity, you can plan as much as you like, but you have to be prepared for a couple of detours along the way or to even end up in a completely different destination. Hello and welcome to Creativity Uncovered. My name is Abby Gatling and I invite you to enjoy me on my journey to uncover how everyday people find inspiration, get inventive, and open their imagination. Basically, in this podcast, I am finding out how people find creative solutions and then how they use them at home, work, play, and everything in between. And my goal is that by the end of it, you'll be armed with a whole suite of tried and tested ways to summon creativity the next time that you need it. And today, I'm very excited to welcome Ali Murphy to the podcast to share her story. Welcome, Ali.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. And our guests can probably tell by your lovely, lovely voice that you are an actor. You are you're a voiceover artist and a podcaster because that is a quality voice.
Oh, well, thank you. Now I feel really pressured to sound really good and really voiceovery the whole way through. But I don't normally.
It's amazing how you can just switch into that and out of that so quickly. Unbelievable. But you've also been a flight attendant. So you've done a bunch of different things. And so I'm really, really curious to learn about your journey, especially your journey with your creativity. So let's start from the beginning. Like, were you a very creative kid?
When I remember being about 11 years old, well, younger than that, when I was a kid, like 8, I would put on shows on my front porch and I'd invite the neighbours to come over because I was convinced they'd want to see my shows. Or if they wouldn't come over, then I'd just line up my teddies and they would be my audience. So I was always doing shows and stuff when I was a kid. And then when I was about 11, I remember looking in the Yellow Pages, the phone directory, and looking for a theatre company because I thought, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to be an actor. And I found, a great little theatre company, joined them, and I'd say I never looked back, but I did. I stopped. I was like an actor when I was a kid, and I did Shakespeare. I did Shakespeare tours, and then I went on to TV for a little bit. I studied performing arts. I loved every part of it, and I was convinced that was what I was going to do. That was my life's meaning. And then at the age of 20, I just took one too many harsh rejections, and in fact, it was the 90s. So if you cast your mind back to the 90s, if anyone's old enough, it's lots of very skinny supermodel type people were the actors of those days. And I was getting told by casting directors, the trouble is you're a bit fat and you're not very beautiful and you're not very unusual looking. You're just quite plain. We can't find any parts for you, which is, what every 20-year-old girl wants to hear.
Oh my God.
I was devastated. But I was like, right, okay. I need to do something else until I'm 30, because when I'm 30, it won't matter what I look like because I won't be playing the leading romantic roles. I'll be the mums and, the 30-year-old roles because, you think 30s are really old when you're 20. And so I took a break and I was trying to find something exciting to do because when I was behind the camera or on stage, there's a buzz that you get and that I get, and when everything goes quiet and the director yells action and you're all working together to make one thing and to give out one message. I loved being part of that and still do to this day. Being on set is my absolute happy place. I needed something that gave me that. So there was a guy in my acting class who said, I can't come to acting class next week. I've got a 5-night Goa or somewhere. I was like, what do you do? He said, I'm a flight attendant. I work for an airline. I thought, that sounds exciting. I could travel the world, get paid for it, for however many years, and then come back a well-rounded actor still, and go and carry on with my acting journey. So that's what I did. I joined the airlines. But
Wow.
yeah, in that time though, I lost a lot of confidence because I started telling people, "Oh, you know what? I used to be an actor, but I was rubbish because clearly I'm not doing it now." And yeah, that was the trouble. Is in that time, I managed to talk myself out of it.
Wow. 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 That what an absolute story to start off with. That firstly, you kind of knew your calling from aged 11 and
Yeah.
actually pursuing that is unbelievable that you knew deep down then. But that makes, those rejections at 20 all the more so harsh. Like that is just how devastating was that? Or were you actually at that point just being like, I'm resigned to this now. I'm just going to move on to something else. Or
I
were you
think it
still
might have been
pining
a
for it?
slow process, and weirdly, and to this day, and it doesn't fit my personality profile, I don't take rejection that bad. And I don't know why. I just usually it's like, well, that's nothing I can help. And I always say, and I say this to my son now, who's nearly 5, as long as you've tried your best and you've had fun, then that's all you can do. And I knew I was trying my best. It wasn't anything to do with my acting ability, and it was just to do with what I look like. And whilst that's not a nice thing to hear, and it did definitely lead to some sort of body issues and eating disorders in my early 20s. I didn't take it as a rejection of my talent at the time. I just thought, well, it's just because I don't look right, and that's rubbish. So that was what it always was. Really, was just rejection of my looks, which I couldn't help. So that's
Wow.
all I could do.
Yeah. Wow. So you were able to sort of divorce yourself from that rejection, saying it's purely about your looks. Even though that was affecting your lifelong career dreams.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to this is the way my brain sorts out rejection. There's rejection and there's disappointment. Um, you can do your absolute best and not get the role or not get the job or not succeed in the way that you wanted and feel deeply disappointed. But you've not been rejected, you've just not been selected that time.
Mm.
I do feel I have felt rejection when it comes to things like relationships, and when I've probably not done my best, or it's something that's not something within my control. That then you can feel rejected because then it's something personal. But I always just feel if you work really hard at what you do and you do it with passion and love and enjoy it, there's nothing more you can do. You can be disappointed, but it's not rejection. It's just disappointment. So maybe I just categorize it differently, I guess.
Wow, that is some higher level thinking right there.
I know, I didn't realize I was so deep.
That is beautiful. I think that is great. Like, it's not rejection, it's just not selection. I have to keep that in mind for
Yeah.
sure.
It's so common in my industry, and now I'm a voice actor as well as a on-camera actor, and I will do 80% more auditions than I get. So I can't get a hit from every single one. I can't you just wouldn't survive mentally. So you just have to appreciate that it's just someone's creating art. I'm a paint color, and I just wasn't quite the right shade at that time. So you just got to try and think of it like that, I guess, rather than feeling like you're not good enough because you've tried your best. And I continue to train. I continue to work hard. I'm always exploring different opportunities. So nothing more I can do and just move on.
I suppose that's it. It's like the nature of that particular industry that you're working within. But so you mentioned now, like that you are actually working in a creative space again. But how long were you working in as a flight attendant?
So I was flying for 14 years in the end. So from the age
Wow.
of 21 to 35. And it was a great ride. And I saw a lot of the world and experienced a lot of things that I never would have had the chance to do before. I mean, I'd recommend it to anybody who's sort of in their 20s and you just want to, well, any age really, but you've got no responsibility. You just want to see the world and experience life. There's nothing like it. So it was a great career for a long time, but I did start to get tired and I wasn't fulfilled and I was getting very frustrated with things like, passengers complaining about stupid things or, dealing with fights or drunk people or vomiting and all that stuff. It gets you down. It definitely wasn't getting fulfilled in any way after that. And it started, the balance of having these amazing experiences, seeing the world, started to tip the other way where it's like, well, I've seen a lot of these places already, but yeah, I'm still having to deal with all of these awful humans. So it's not worth it anymore. And I was facing redundancy. My company was making redundancies, and my rank was one of the ranks getting cut drastically back. And my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, said, "Look, if you could do anything, and money didn't matter, what would you do?" And I thought about it, and I thought, I want to be back in a creative space. I want to be doing performance in some way. I want to be a voice actor. Because at the time as well, I still had some confidence issues about the way I looked and the way that I was on screen. I'd already deep ingrained in my brain was the story that I'd told people saying, oh yeah, I wasn't very good, But I'd done a voiceover for a weight loss company because I'd lost some weight on this weight loss company. And they'd asked a bunch of people who were real customers to do some testimonials. And I did some voiceover for it. And I felt that buzz again when I was behind the microphone. And the engineer said, you're pretty good at this. Have you thought about doing it as a career? So that was another big universe sign flashing at me that I needed to get back into doing something creative. So I just thought, well, I'll try go back into voiceover. And my husband said, well, let's do it then. And he bought me a microphone, shoved me in the closet. I read a book. Did what I could, and then I threw everything I had into all my time and all of my redundancy money into learning how to be a voiceover and how to be a business as well. So I completely switched careers at 35.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And so, I mean, I guess it definitely plays back into your previous acting experience because it's just acting with your voice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I like to do when I'm in the booth, whether I'm doing a video game where I'm playing a real character or I'm doing e-learning for health and safety or something like that. I put myself in my actor's shoes and I put myself in their position. So, and it's going to sound so weird, but when I'm in the booth, I almost go into a different world. I black out. I see other people. I see the room that I'm in. If I'm supposed to be in an office, I see that I'm in an office. I'm supposed to be shouting far off into a distance in the field. I see the field and the trees, and I move my body and have physicality. And so, no matter what genre I'm doing in the booth, I'm doing it with an actor's head on, I guess.
Yeah, so you're relying deeply on your imagination to get into that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I had a great imagination when I was a kid, which is probably why I wanted to be an actor. I would spend days in the fields following fox prints, pretending that I was in an Enid Blyton book, just having adventures and jolly good times throughout my childhood. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just my imagination sticking me in those places. But it's super helpful. And traveling the world has led me to actually be able to envision different places around the world, or that I'm speaking to different people, because your tone will change when you're speaking to, I don't know, a politician to when you're speaking to your best mate. So it changes like that. And being able to envision where I am in the room, whom I'm speaking to, what the relationship I have with them, I think that really helps.
Wow. So it sounds like you have incredible command over your voice. Because even when you were saying that between politician and your best mate, there were these micro changes in your voice just then that just shows how well you can control it. It's unbelievable.
Oh, well, thank you.
So that did that draw on your acting training, do you think?
I think so, yeah. Especially because I did it so young, the acting training is probably still deep in there in my programming. And I guess being on the aisle of an aeroplane is like being on stage. Everyone's watching you. You have to do some dance moves at the beginning with your hands showing the exits. You have to talk to different people. I would sit at the upper class bar a lot of the time and chat to many different people, actors or businessmen, and people from all over the world, all different backgrounds. Or I'd stand in the back gallery and have a cup of tea with old ladies. So I just got used to speaking to a lot of people, and I think that helps as well. It's not always necessarily just my acting training. It's just an ability to communicate. And what you need nowadays is genuine communication. You can't just read from a script and make your voice sound nice and smooth, because AI is out there and it's sounding really polished right now. So all we can do is bring our humanness to our scripts and our voice, and you embrace all of the little cracks and errors we make, the pauses for thought, and all those sorts of things. I think that's what helps bring a script to life and really get that message across and actually connect with somebody rather than just telling them a message.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's about I guess the context of what you're reading and being able, like, as a human, you can kind of know what that context is and be able to bring that in through your delivery.
Yeah, it's like, so we as humans, we're quite sensitive to slight changes. Like you heard in my voice the difference when I said politician and best friend. You heard that, and that's not something you can program. That's not something you can tell an AI to do. So
Yeah, I mean, that's such a hot topic at the moment
I
with
know I
AI.
shouldn't have mentioned it. Terribly sorry.
That could be a whole other episode. So tell me, from deciding that this is the thing you wanted to do and you're locking yourself in and reading the book, what did that process look like? So did you read a book as a submission to put yourself out there as a voice actor, or to have evidence of that, or like what was that all about?
So yeah, a friend of mine from my acting days had a connection with a TV station, and they said, "Well, send me some stuff, and I'll send it on and see if anybody could use you." So that was my motivation. I downloaded some scripts from the internet that I'd found, and just did some samples. And what I didn't realize I was making was my very first demo reel, and it was really good because I managed to learn a little bit about sound design, editing, recording. I kind of gathered all the things I needed to do to put this one uh, reel out. It didn't get me anywhere because I imagine it was pretty rubbish actually, but it was really good for just getting my feet wet and just jumping in straight away and finding out what I needed to do. I also joined a couple of organisations that were in the UK, the Voiceover Network and Gravy for the Brain, who both train voice actors, and one in person and one online. And that was really good as well because I was able to just suddenly get access to a community and learn from people. And that's one thing I'd say about the voiceover community is they're so open, they're so welcoming, they're so helpful. People are always happy to share their experiences, and that was what really helped me. I was able to just learn from a bunch of people who'd been doing it a lot longer than I had, and I was able to accelerate a little bit that way.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think it is so important to have that supportive community around you, especially as you're learning. And I mean, I never thought about it, but of course there is a community for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just by going out online and joining a group with a similar interest to yours, you find a community.
Yeah, yes. So was this then starting to tap into your creativity again? Were you feeling yourself kind of feeling more alive creatively as you started this process?
Absolutely. I remember when I was doing some commercial reads for my pretend reel, and I was finding music that I could put to the back to it and twiddling with sound design and making things sound there's a special kind of magic that comes together in editing when you put your voice next to a piece of music and it just elevates it. It elevates whatever emotion you're trying to create. I do it a lot in my podcast now because I do the sound design and storytelling in the podcast that I have. And when I find the right piece of music that with the words from the script just join and make this absolute magic that can put goose pimples on your arm or just make you feel something or bring back a memory, that sort of things that triggered my passion for creativity again, and making myself realize that I could do things that would create an emotion in somebody else. And that's generally what most creativity is. It's you wanting to affect somebody in one way or another. So yeah, that I think definitely getting in that cupboard and just starting practicing doing what I needed to do was the thing that sparked all that creativity off. But it was a longer journey than that, and it was a journey of discovery as well. I took a bunch of workshops because I just wanted to learn as much as I could. So I was taking animation voice workshops, I was taking audiobook workshops, and then I came across this workshop for voice actors. It was cognitive behavioral therapy, which is not something that you really think would be for voice actors, but I took it because I was taking every course I could. So I was like, I'm going to take this course. And I got in there, and the coach went through some of the things that, they coaxed out of us the things that were probably holding us back in our creativity and holding us back in our success. And I discovered that throughout the 14 years since I'd been an actor, and probably a few years before that from getting, told I was not good enough, I'd built all of these experiences that confirmed to myself that I wasn't worthy and that I wasn't very successful. I wasn't very good at what I did. And I needed to work through all of that, lift them all up, experience it a different way to release myself from that weight. And during this therapy, they basically put you in a position, they put you back to a time that was traumatic for you, or a time that you feel like really heavily affected who you are today, and helps you work your way into experiencing it in a different way. And it was like magic. I'm not explaining it very well because I am not a coach, but I would definitely encourage anybody to explore any kind of therapy that helps you release yourself from these things that you've told yourself over the years. And I realized I had been a victim. I had a victim mindset for decades, telling myself that I wasn't good enough, telling myself that I wasn't worth anything. And that affected my relationships, it affected my family, my friends, any opportunity. I didn't see opportunities because I was so beating myself up about how awful life was that I would miss things that would go by. So having that therapy lifted that weight off my head, and suddenly it was like the world had opened up. Opportunities came at me left, right, and centre, and I was taking the opportunities, and some of them went somewhere and some of them didn't. But even the ones that didn't would teach me something new. And that's what my life has been like since. It's been 8 years now, and I genuinely wake up every morning and think, ooh, what's going to happen today? Is there going to be an email that comes into my inbox? Is there going to be a conversation that I have with somebody that triggers something that will send me off on a whole other journey? I swear to God, it happens every single day. I will talk to somebody or read something, and I'm like, oh, that'd be a good idea. Write that down because I'm going to explore that later. I have a list as long as as this house, I think, because it's just I have so many ideas that I want to work on, and I do go back to it and I work my way through it all the time. But none of that would have been possible if I'd kept that ceiling on myself and ignored all the opportunities that were there.
Yeah, wow. That does sound like a fantastic sort of transformative process for you. And I mean, you mentioned before, like when you were getting back into, the voice acting or starting the voice acting, you still were lacking confidence around
Mm.
how you looked, and the voice acting was kind of shielding you from that. Did this process and this um, therapy, did that help in that way as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it started me off on a journey of just being kind to myself. So I started looking after myself physically, getting enough sleep and water and all that stuff that we know we're supposed to do but never do. And I would give myself a mantra that I'd have to say every day. I'm not very good at meditating. I have a very busy brain that goes on all the time. So being quiet or concentrating on my breath doesn't happen. So whenever I was supposed to meditate, whether that was first thing in the morning or, after a yoga class when they tell you to turn your brain off, I wouldn't be quiet to myself. I would just think these words and feel these words. And I would say to myself for a whole year, I am successful. I am worthy. I am kind. Because they were the three things that I really need to work on. Feeling. I needed to feel successful. And I felt like, what would it feel? What is my future going to be like when I am successful? I am worthy. I needed to feel like I was worthy of that success. I am talented. I am confident. I am able. I'm hardworking. And then I am kind was just something that I thought, if I'm going to be all of these things, I need to be kind too. I need to give back to people that have helped me. I need to think about the planet as a whole. I need to think about the world as a whole and humans and community and be as kind as I can in everything that I do so that I can be worthy and of success. So that's what I did for a year. And I guess in the same way that I'd told myself for so long that I wasn't good enough, I started telling myself that I was until I started feeling it. And it probably sounds arrogant, but I promise you it's not in an arrogant way. I just have confidence in how hard I work. I have confidence in my natural talents, and I know that I will always strive to do better. It's a beautiful life when you can feel that way about yourself because everything seems a little bit brighter. Everything seems, you have gratitude for everything. I literally walk down the street, I walk around the block every day. Just because I need to move my body sometimes when you've been in the studio. I highly recommend going outside, even if it's raining. And I listen to the birds, and I listen to the wind, and I listen to the rain because I live in the Pacific Northwest. So I listen to all these things, and I think there'll be a time in my life when I wish I could hear that sound one more time. I wish I could feel the rain on my face one more time. So I'm grateful for it in that moment. All these little things that I did from 8 years ago and up until now, and I'm continuing to grow, and I'll continue to learn new things, are helping my creativity because they're just opening me up. I'm no longer crippled by doubt. I'm just excited by opportunity. And so these are the things I've learned, and I'm probably not saying it very eloquently, but these are the things I've learned over the time that I have had in this industry so far, and they've really helped me. And if it helps anybody, just think, oh, maybe I could just take a walk today and be grateful for the things that I can see. Or maybe I can just start telling myself that I am worthy. I will feel so good knowing even if I just affected one person and it leads them into a better life for themselves.
Yes. Yes. And like what I was thinking during that whole time that you were saying that is that you really are living out your mantra in being kind because you're being so kind to yourself. Just the way you were talking about yourself just then, it was just beautiful.
Oh, thank you. It's funny, I'm a mother now, which I wasn't when I started this journey, but it's made me so conscious of how I want him to grow up and how I want him to see the world and see himself. And I don't want him, although there is benefits to having bad experiences in your life, you certainly learn from them. I don't want him to feel any heartbreak like I did, or feel any of that low, crippling depression and no self worth. I don't want him to feel any of that. So the way that I now talk to myself, I'm trying to teach my son to talk to himself that way as well.
Oh, absolutely. You've got to model the behaviors because they're always listening.
Oh yeah, don't we know it?
Yeah. So you eventually made the jump from voice acting to acting in front of the camera again.
Yeah.
How did that happen? And are you feeling more confident in that now?
Yeah, for sure. It's only really been maybe about just over 3 years. I decided that I wanted to get back. I'd been doing voiceover for about 4 years, and I'd done a few video games where I had to do motion capture. So I'd have maybe a camera on my face and the dots all over you, that sort of thing. So I was kind of like half on camera. They would animate to whatever my movements were, and I really enjoyed it. And then as I was approaching my 40th birthday, I thought, the same way I did when I was 30, and I lost all my weight just before I turned 30 because I thought, I want to be a confident 40-year-old. As I was coming up to my 40th birthday, I was like, okay, what do I want for the next decade? I thought, I'll never forgive myself if I don't try and go back on camera. I didn't really want to go back on stage, mainly because as a parent, there's no time. There's just no time with a small one. So I thought, I can do camera work. That'll be fine. And I just thought, I'll go for it. I made a show reel. I contacted a bunch of agents. This is when I was living in London. So I contacted a bunch of agents, and one was like, yeah, we really need someone just like you. There's so few women in their 40s who were relatively unknown. And I do comedy bits, and there's so many few women. We need women in their 40s doing comedy. I was like, great, I'm your woman. So that's what I did, and I went and did that. And now I love it. And now I seem to be leaning. I mean, I did a film this month, May. That was last month. I did a film last month, and then I've got 2 films next month, a short film and a feature film. So
Wow.
things are building up, and the more that I'm putting myself out there and connecting with people again, I'm now starting to like build up a bit more of a community here in the States. That's helping as well. So as a major tip for anybody wanting to get into any form of creativity is start connecting with other people in your community who do the same thing as you, because that's where the opportunities lie.
Yes. And you can get fantastic synergy, bouncing ideas of each other and
Yeah,
collaborating and absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a great I have a lot of accountability buddies, and some of them are for my business, as in for marketing. Some of them are for bouncing off ideas. Some of them are just support for when things are going the way that I didn't expect. Just by bouncing ideas off people or chatting or leaving endless voice notes, as what me one of my friends do. We leave each other endless voice notes, but I don't know, so many of ideas have come out of those endless voice notes. So I think it's a great idea just to have somebody you can bounce stuff off of. And in the meantime, there's another thing that I did started doing this year, and I really think it's affected my entire year, was starting to write down things. Try kind of like journaling, but I would do like the morning pages, the train of thought, except I'd usually do mine in the evening because I have a 4-year-old and I can't do anything in the morning. So I do my morning pages in the evening, and I would just sit and write for 20 minutes, whatever was going on in my head, even if it was just like, I don't know what I want to talk about. I had fish for my dinner, just whatever was burbling out of my brain. But eventually some things start bubbling towards the front, and little ideas and little thoughts that you had. And, I wonder if I could explore that starts coming down too. And I guess that's the same as bouncing ideas off other people as just bouncing ideas off myself.
Yeah. And what are these ideas? Are these ideas for you to maybe make your own film or your own short piece, or like what are these ideas? I'm curious.
So I'd say probably the most significant one was at the end of last year. I'd done a podcast last year. Done a podcast, that's not a right word. I'd narrated a podcast last year, a true crime podcast, and I loved it. That that style of storytelling was just so good. It wasn't my words. I wasn't writing it. I was literally given the script by a client. I'd narrate it. They'd send it off and they'd put all the music and the stuff to it. And I was desperate to do more of that work. And I was trying to think, all right, where can I get that work from? And I was kind of bouncing ideas off various people in my industry, the voiceover, and everyone was thinking, there's no real place you get them. You just get approached by them. So I was giving myself a talking to in the car one day, in my inner monologue, and I was thinking, I just want to tell some stories. I thought, well, I've got stories. I've literally been writing some stories down of my days as a flight attendant, because I have so many and they're ridiculous and some people don't believe them. And I want to be able to remember them when I'm really old. As you go to a dinner party and say that you used to be a flight attendant, everyone goes, oh, what's the worst passenger you've had? Or what's the funniest thing that ever happened? And I'm starting to write those stories down. And then the way I was writing wasn't great. It was like, and then I did this, and then I visited here, and I thought, I can't write like a good writer can, but I know somebody that does. And I'd narrated her audiobook a couple of years before. She was cabin crew, and she had written a book about being cabin crew. And I thought, I wonder if she might fancy doing something with me. So I left her a long voice note about, really sorry to bother you. I know you haven't heard from me in a while, but I'm thinking of doing this. And what do you think? And she got straight back to me and said, oh my goodness, I've been thinking of doing the same thing, but I can't, my voice is awful and I can't tell stories like that. And do you want to work together? So just by like writing stuff down, things, I'd really like to do that, but how can I do that? And I know this person. It led to me collaborating with this author, and we wrote this podcast together, and we release an episode every single week, and it's like a short audio story, but they're true stories. A lot of them are mine, and now we started having people donate their story, which has been great. So we've had cabin crew members and pilots and passengers donate their stories, and then we turn them into a short audiobook style thing, with sound design and everything. And it's been a crazy journey. We're loving it, and that's all just from bouncing ideas off people and taking yourself down a path.
Ah, that's wonderful. And your podcast is called The Red Eye. And we'll
Yes.
definitely put a link to it in the show notes because it's really cool. I've listened to a couple of episodes and it's wonderful. And you're doing the sound editing for your own podcast, are you? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, it's something and that's something I've not really had to do in my career as a voice actor, so I've been really enjoying doing that because genuinely I just get a buzz when it goes right. It's delicious. So I really
Yeah.
enjoy doing that.
Yeah. So you're getting so many in this project, you're getting so many different opportunities to flex different creative muscles. It just
Yeah.
sounds like a wonderful, wonderful project for you.
Yeah, and people say create your own content all the time. And I used to think, well, that's all right for you to say, but I can't think of anything. But once I started writing down, okay, who am I? What have I done? What story can I tell? What do I want to do in the future? Once I started writing all that stuff down, the ideas start popping up. You can start making connections with things. And like I did with okay, flight attendant, lots of stories, want to make my own content, want to showcase my storytelling in some kind of way. Well, there we go. Make my own content. And now I do comedy sketches on social media as well of being a flight attendant, so the slightly more ridiculous stuff. Again, all true stories, but just I'm able to make a fool of myself, which is another thing that I actually that's just rang a bell actually. When you say what did you do to kind of heal my confidence after having so many knockbacks, I started making a fool of myself because I thought if I can put stuff out there that I know makes me look silly, I'll I won't care as much. Does that sounds like big back to front, but that's that's what I started doing. I started posting. I started years ago. I'd pull a funny face or do something and take photos and put it on social media. I thought if I can make fun of myself, it will help my confidence because I won't care what people are thinking about the way that I look. They'll just be like, "Oh, she made me laugh." Or something. So that's what I do now. Is I do these little very silly sketches about being a flight attendant on social media.
Oh, so good. And so, yeah, that means that you're able to then take your stories and translate it into a visual medium as well. Like you're getting so many different avenues out of this
Yeah, just that
one
one
thing.
little idea. Yeah.
I think it's great. And you're saying that, struggling to come up with the idea in the first place, but now it's just coming so easily. That rings true from so many of the guests on the podcast is that
Mm.
once you get into your creative flow, it's so much easier to maintain it, but actually starting that is the hardest part a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's why I recommend that writing exercise because no one's going to read it. You probably won't even read it yourself. But if you just start writing, and even if there's nothing in your head for the first 10 minutes, just keep on writing because something will come out. And then you've not got that
Mm.
pressure of, I've got to write something good from day one, or I've got to have the idea from the very beginning. Just start writing down random stuff. One of my ideas came from, I was just thinking about my grandma who'd passed. And I was writing, oh, I wish I just asked her more questions when she was alive about when she was 20. I just wish I'd asked her more questions. And then I started thinking, maybe I could interview some older cabin crew, people that flew in the 60s and the 70s. I bet they've got great stories. And I went on a whole path of that, of speaking to Pan Am flight attendants and people that flew in the good old days. I got some great stories from them. So, you just start writing. It doesn't matter if you don't know what to write, just start writing down whatever is going on in your brain. And you never know when that idea that is the one is going to pop up.
Yeah, yeah. You never know where it'll take you. I mean, I'm reading at the moment Jerry Seinfeld's book called Is This Anything? And it's basically exactly that. Like he has documented every single idea for a joke or a skit that he's ever come up with. And reading it, some of them may go into his stand up, some of them go into his show. Most of them have never gone anywhere, but
Hmm.
he's like meticulously documented it and now he can refer back to it and kind of see where you know, he can use that to kickstart a new idea. He can see how far he's come. It's wonderful. I think it's a great idea just to,
It is such a good
yeah,
idea.
without the pressure of having any expectations of it.
Yeah, I write them down in my notes section on my phone, with the check boxes you can do. So that if I ever do one, I can check it off. And it's really
Ooh.
helpful to do that. If I ever get an idea, even if I'm just sort of cooking and I think, oh, that'd be funny, I just quickly write it down because I'm going to forget within 5 minutes. If I think I'll write that later, I will have forgotten it. Or if somebody tells me a funny story, if I read something, I just jot it down quickly so I can remember it at a later date. So yeah, that's it. Oh, me and Jerry, doing the same thing.
Twin flames. Oh, well, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. I think it's been such an interesting one because it has taken so many different paths and you've ended up somewhere probably where you never expected to be. And I think that's just the wonder of leaning into your creative journey. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for letting me witter on so much.
Anytime, and we will have to do an episode on AI.
Uh-oh.
Be contentious. I love it. um, but I also want to say thanks to everyone who's tuned in to this episode of Creativity Uncovered. I really hope that it encourages you just to, lean into the journey and not have too much of a fixed mindset of where you want to end up, because there can be some beautiful detours along the way. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, please do jump onto Apple or Spotify or wherever you're listening to us and sling us a rating or review. That would be absolutely fantastic. And until next time, take care. If you've made it this far, a huge thank you for your support and tuning into today's episode. Creativity Uncovered has been lovingly recorded on the land of the Cubby Cubby people, and we pay our respect to elders past, present, and emerging. This podcast has been produced by my amazing team here at Crisp Communications, and the music you just heard was composed by James Gatling. If you liked this episode, please do share it around and help us on our mission to unlock more creativity in this world. You can also hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episode releases.